What will you do if your deepest secret came back as a grown man calling you daddy? What if the child your village called a curse, the one you threw into a forest to die, returned not for revenge, but as the one person who could save you? This is the heart wrenching, soul stirring, true life inspired story of Ozoma, a boy abandoned by his own family because of fear and found by faith. But what happened nearly 30 years later will leave you speechless. Stay with me because this story will break you, heal you, and leave you with tears of joy. Subscribe if you have not. Like this video, share it with your family and friends. Grab your popcorn, sit JJ, and enjoy yourself. Oh yeah, let's go there. In one small quiet village inside Akwa Ibom State, where the forest trees stretch tall like giants and the red earth tells stories of generations, lived the Bassi family. They were a family of six. Life was not smiling on them, but they were managing, just like every other poor family in that village. Mr. Bassi, the father, was a hardworking farmer. His hands were always dusty from the farm, his clothes always smelling of sweat and struggle. His wife, Mama Odwak, was a trader. She sold pepper and dried fish under a bamboo shed beside the road. They had four children. Effiong, their first son, about 7 years old. Nsekak, their first daughter, around 5 years old. Nse, the second girl, just 3 years old, and still talking with baby tongue. And then came the last born, Edafe, a baby of only 2 years. Edafe was different. From the moment he was born, everything about him shook the entire community. His eyes were not black, not brown, not even hazel. They were blue, clear ocean blue, like the sky after rainfall. People gathered the day he was born. Even the village chief came to see him. But what started as curiosity soon turned into fear. This child is not normal, some villagers whispered. Blue eyes in Akwa Ibom? This one na marine spirit o. Some said Edafe came from the water kingdom. Others said he was a spiritual child sent to bring calamity. At first, Mr. Bassi and Mama Udwak tried to defend their baby. He's just a baby, they would say. Now God create him like that. But slowly, things began to change. Crops began to die in the farms. Even Mr. Bassi's cassava and the yam farm stopped yielding. His okra bent without reason. Fishermen who used to come back with baskets of fish started returning empty handed. Some said their boats broke in the river mysteriously. Hunters who used to boast of bush meat now came home empty handed, some wounded. People started connecting every misfortune in the village to one person, Edafe. Ever since that blue-eyed child come into this world, we no get peace again, no, the elders said during their village meeting. Slowly, neighbors stopped visiting the buses. Women crossed the road when they saw Mama Odwak. Children no longer play with Effiong or Insekak. Even Mama Udwak's pepper and dry fish stopped selling. One day, a neighbor told them in secret and said, go and see the native doctor at Ikot Ntwen. Let him tell you the truth. If not, this boy go finish your whole family. Oh." Desperate and afraid, Mr. Bassi and his wife traveled one early morning, leaving their children at home with a neighbor. When they got to the shrine, the place smelled of burning herbs and fear. The witch doctor looked into a calabash, rubbed his red stained palm on the floor and said, "The child is not ordinary. He is from the marine world. He has power beyond what this land can contain. If you want peace to return to your family and this village, you must either return him to where he came from or deliver him. But that deliverance will cost you 500,000 naira, two white goats, cowries, chalks, palm oil, and native leaves from the river mouth." That was the money they could never ever afford. So one night, a cold, dark night, when the moon refused to shine, Mr. Bassi wrapped Edafe in a faded wrapper. He told the children they were going to visit someone in the next town. Effiong, Nsekak, and Nse were happy. They wore their slippers with excitement and followed their parents to the old family van. But before they reached the edge of the village, Mr. Bassi stopped the van and told the three elder children to come down. "Wait here with Mama," he said. Then he carried Edafe quietly into the van and drove off alone. The children, too young to understand, sat quietly in the dark, playing with sand and rubbing sleep from their eyes. Mama Udwak didn't speak. She stood silently, facing the bush like a statue. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let drop. Meanwhile, in a thick forest, deep into another state, where even birds fear to sing at night, Mr. Bassi stopped the van. Edafe was already half asleep. He looked up and smiled and said, "Dada, Dada." He mumbled in baby voice, not knowing that this would be the last time he would say that word. Mr. Bassey's hands shook. He dropped the wrapper on the forest floor. Edafe sat confused. His little blue eyes looked around. Then, in a whisper, Mr. Bassey said, "If truly you are not a child of this world, may your people come and carry you." And he left. Edafe sat alone in the forest. Cold breeze blew through the trees. An owl hooted. Leaves danced in the dark. But the small boy with the blue eyes didn't cry. He looked up at the stars and smiled again. Something unseen moved in the forest, soft, gentle, like a breath of life, but no one else saw it. Back at home, Mr. Bassi returned. The children were already sleeping. Mama Udwak entered the house without a word. That night, nobody talked about what had happened, but in the forest, the story was just beginning. The cold wind of the forest carried Edafe's cries like a song of sorrow. His small lips quivered as he cried and coughed, his stomach making empty, painful sounds. Ants crawled near him, and mosquitoes feasted freely on his soft skin. His wrapper had half unfolded, exposing his thin body. He looked tired, confused, hungry, and abandoned. But while the forest thought it had swallowed another forgotten soul, destiny had a different plan. That same day, just like miracle timing, a convoy of two jeeps slowly drove into the outskirts of the same forest. One big man, Chief Ilodibe, a wealthy businessman from the east, who had many companies across Nigeria, stepped out of the front jeep. He had come with his land agent to inspect this very portion of land, which he intended to buy for building a new bottled water factory. The land agent was showing him boundaries, measuring plots, and pointing with his long file when they suddenly heard something, a sound, a child's cry. Everyone paused. "Wait, you hear that?" Chief Ilodibe asked, looking into the trees. The cry came again. It was weak, faint, but painful. Someone dey cry inside that bush, the land agent confirmed. Without wasting time, Chief Ilodibe and two of his boys began following the sound. Stepping carefully through the thick bush, they pushed aside dry leaves and crawling branches until they saw him lying on the forest floor, small, dirty, shivering, half asleep and half crying, his blue eyes blinking through the dust and tears. A strange silence filled the air as they looked at the boy. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then Chief Ilodibe slowly knelt down and touched him. My God, who dropped this child here? He asked, his heart racing. The boy looked at him weakly, and for a brief second, even with all the pain, Edafe tried to smile. Something in Chief Ilodibe's heart melted instantly. Pick him. We dey go police station now, he said quickly. They wrapped Edafe gently in a clean cloth they had in the car and drove straight to the nearest police station in the next town. When they reached, Chief Ilodibe didn't waste time. Officer, please, I just found this small boy abandoned in the bush. You can see him for yourself. He is hungry and weak. I want this matter investigated well. Anything concerning this child, I will take responsibility. All the cost I go pay. Just help me find who did this wicked thing. The police officers, shocked at the boy's condition, immediately took photos and video of the child for evidence. One of them gently cleaned Edafe's face and gave him water. They took statements from Chief Ilodibe and the land agent. But after that, the police told him, saying, Oga, we no get proper place to keep small children like this. The best thing now na to hand am over to orphanage. We go continue the investigation from our side. Chief Ilodibe nodded and said, no wahala, let's contact them fast. Within 1 hour, the nearest registered orphanage arrived. They came with a female caregiver and a social worker. The caregiver carried Edafe carefully and noticed the dryness of his skin and lips. This child needs urgent hospital care, she said seriously. Take him to the best hospital, Chief Ilodibe responded without thinking twice. Put all the bills in my name. The orphanage team looked at him in surprise and said, are you a relative to the child, sir? The social worker asked gently. No, Chief Ilodibe replied, but I believe destiny connected us. So please just help him, he said. They drove Edafe to the biggest government hospital in the state, St. Mary Specialist Hospital, where he was rushed to the children's emergency ward. The doctors ran tests, blood samples, temperature checks, x-rays, eye examinations, scans, everything. 2 days passed. The results finally came. The child had no sickness. His blood group was AA. No trace of genetic disorder. No skin infections. No disease. The only thing wrong was malnutrition. He hadn't eaten well in months. His body was lacking the basic nutrients that children need. His stomach had shrunk. His eyes had dried out, but his organs were fine, and his heart still beating strong. The hospital returned him for proper feeding and vitamin treatment. For the first time in days, Edafe slept under a roof. Nurses played cartoons on the world TV. He was bathed, fed, and placed under mosquito nets. The doctors even gave him toys. Chief Ilodibe came every day. Sometimes he brought fruits, other times he brought diapers and warm baby clothes. And every time Edafe saw him, he reached out his small hands and smiled. The nurses began to notice, this boy dey respond to this man like say na him real papa. The doctor smiled and said, sometimes blood no be the only thing that joins people. After one full week in the hospital, Edafe was looking stronger. His cheeks had added small flesh. He could now stand up and say short words like Papa and Nana. The hospital finally discharged him and handed him over to the orphanage with clear instructions for his daily feeding and care. But before they left, Chief Ilodibe signed a standing order and said, every month I will send money for his upkeep. If una need anything, call me. I'm ready to go far for this boy. As the orphanage car drove off, Edafe turned his head back and smiled through the window at Chief Ilodibe. Those strange blue eyes, eyes that once brought fear and rejection, now looked like they were carrying hope. But deep inside the forest, where he was once abandoned, something unseen stirred, something that had witnessed the cruelty and the miracle. And back in the village, Mr. Bassi and Mama Odwak had no idea that the boy they left for dead had now stepped into a destiny far beyond what they could ever imagine. The police investigation dragged on. Flyers were printed, pictures were shared, local radio stations even announced the discovery of a missing child found near the forest border. But no one came, no relative, no neighbor, no mother, no father. Nothing. It was as if the little boy had fallen from the sky. After 2 months, the police called a meeting with the management of the orphanage. Oya, one of the officers said, we don't try everything. We don't carry this boy case go 3 divisions. Nobody don't show face. So, by law, we fit now declare say you no get family. He is now considered an orphan, he said. They handed the orphanage a signed certificate, a legal document declaring the child abandoned and eligible for adoption. The moment the orphanage got the certificate, they called Chief Ilodibe. The moment he heard the news, he didn't even blink. Prepare the papers, he told them. I want to adopt him officially. I have been waiting for this, he said. Chief Ilodibe and his wife, Madam Chinwe, had 3 daughters already, beautiful, intelligent girls. Adanna, 17 years old, the eldest, Ifunanya, the gentle middle child, 14 years old, and Chizitere, the last baby girl, 10 years. But despite the joy his daughters brought him, Chief Ilodibe's heart always longed for a son to carry his name. That little boy with blue eyes, that was his answer. So after days of paperwork, court approvals, welfare screening, and final signatures, the orphanage released the boy officially to Chief Ilodibe and Madam Chinwe. They named him Uzoma, meaning the good road, because truly the boy came into their lives like a miracle on a lonely path. They welcomed him. Madam Chinwe brought out wrappers, new clothes, shoes, toys, baby blankets, and even perfume. Their 3 daughters screamed with joy when they heard the news. Daddy adopted him? Finally, Ada shouted. Is he coming today? Chizzy asked. If Nanya simply smiled and said, let's prepare his room. They didn't treat him like a stranger. They called him our brother from day one. Uzoma was given the room next to Chizdere. His wardrobe was stocked, his birthday celebrated, and his name was registered in one of the best private schools in the city, Royal Grace International School. He stood out not just because of his blue eyes, but because of his intelligence. Uzoma was smart, obedient, gentle, and always ahead in class. Teachers loved him. Students admired him. Even though his accent was different at first, he picked up fast. At home, he blended in completely. He called Madam Chinwe mommy. He called Chief Ilodibe daddy. He didn't know anything different, and nobody ever told him. Years passed. Uzoma grew into a fine young man, tall, neat, focused, with wisdom beyond his years. At age 16, he finished secondary school with the best WAEC and JAMB scores in his set. His picture was placed on the school wall of fame. Chief Ilodibe smiled that day and said, "This boy no be mistake. God planted him here." They sent him to the university, Grand Crest University, one of the most prestigious private universities in the state. Uzoma studied business management, and it was like fish in water. He excels in all his courses. He won awards, led business clubs, and even launched a campus entrepreneurship mentorship program that helped other students. By the time Uzoma graduated with first class, his adopted father had already made plans. "Uzoma, my son," Chief Ilodibe said one night at the dining table, "I want you to go further. Go and get your master's degree. If possible, go for PhD. This company I built, I want you to run it. I believe in you." Uzoma bowed his head and said, "Thank you, Daddy. I will make you proud." And he did. He proceeded to get his master's degree and later his PhD in business strategy and management. While doing that, he interned in international companies, joined seminars, and worked closely with business experts across the country. Meanwhile, back home, Chief Ilodibe, now aging, slowly began to hand things over. He made Uzoma the executive director of the Ilodibe Group, a massive business empire spanning bottled water, real estate, and logistics. Some outsiders whispered and said, "Who be this boy wey just enter and take over?" But those who knew him said, "Dat boy no be ordinary, he carry grace and the man raised him well." Inside the family, there was peace. Adanna had gotten married and moved to Abuja. Ifnanya was working as a fashion designer in Lagos. Chizitere had entered university studying law, and Uzoma, he ran the company like a pro. But through all these years, Uzoma never knew the truth. He thought the Ilodibes were his real parents, that he was born into wealth, that nothing ever went wrong in his early life. But destiny always has a way of bringing back the truth, because somewhere not far from the same forest where he was abandoned, a secret was about to rise. And when it does, Uzoma's entire world and everything he believed in will be tested. Back to the real family. Far away in the quiet village of Ekot Ekan in Akwa Ibom State, 28 long years had passed since Mr. Bassi and his wife Odoak, driven by fear and confusion, abandoned their last child, Edafe, in a forest. The family had struggled in poverty. Mr. Bassi had died years ago, and now his widow, Mama Odoak, lay on her deathbed, sick, weary, and tormented by guilt. Her children, Effiong, the first son, Nsekak, the first daughter, and Nse, the second daughter, all sat by her side in the small clay house on a way of a secret that was about to shake their foundation. With a weak and trembling voice, their mother, Mama Uduak, broke down in tears and said, "Effiong, Nsekak, Nse, please forgive me. I cannot die with this guilt. Years ago, your father and I, we abandoned your little brother Edafe. We dumped him inside the forest, far away from here. It was because of his blue eyes. People said he was a marine witch. The villagers blamed him for every bad thing. Crops were dying. Fishermen weren't catching fish. Hunters returned empty-handed. They said Edafe was the cause. The children stared at her in shock, struggling to process what they had just heard. But, Mama, what are you saying? You mean Edafe, our brother, is alive? Nsikak stammered. I don't know, Udwak sobbed, but I kept seeing him in my dreams, crying, calling me mommy. Why did you reject me? That boy, he's not a witch. He's special. I believe it now. Before I die, please, I beg you, look for him. If he's alive, let him know I regret everything. Oya, here, take this. She stretched out a faded photograph, a small torn picture of Edafe with his innocent face and striking blue eyes. The siblings took it with trembling hands. Not long after her confession, Mama Odwak breathed her last. After the burial of their mother, the journey begins. Determined to fulfill their mother's dying wish, Effiong, Nsikak, and Nse sold some land and pooled resources together. They traveled to the state their mother had described, the same forest area where she said Edafe was left to die. But when they arrived, they couldn't recognize anything. The once quiet forest has transformed into a bustling, developed area. Tall buildings, paved roads, factories, and a large company estate now stood where dense trees once grew. Even the trees had been cleared long ago. Disappointed but still hopeful, they walked to the nearest police station to report the matter and seek help. When they entered, they met a young officer at the front desk. After listening to their story, the officer excused himself and went to call the DPO, a well respected old officer. After listening carefully to Effiong, Nsikak, and Nse, the DPO, formerly the young corporal who handled the case 28 years ago, took a deep breath. His face carried both surprise and reflection. He held the old faded photo of Edafe, the blue-eyed boy, in his hands. This boy, I can never forget this face, the DPO said. Emotionally, yes, I remember him clearly. He was found inside the forest, crying, abandoned. It was a rich man named Chief Ilodibe who brought him to this station. The siblings leaned forward, anxious. That same day, the DPO continued. We documented the case, took pictures, and after a long investigation with no results, we contacted the orphanage to take him in. Chief Ilodibe took full responsibility, paid his medical bills, ensured his care, and told us he wanted to follow the case till the end, the DPO said. He walked over to a dusty cabinet labeled Archives, opened it carefully, and brought out an old but well kept file. Inside were documents, reports, and photos, including a photo of a crying malnourished child with bright blue eyes. This is him, the DPO said softly. This was the little boy. The siblings stared in disbelief, tears welling up in Nse's eyes. He's alive. Oh God, he's alive, Nsekak whispered. The DPO nodded solemnly and said, yes, but there is more, he added. The orphanage that took him in, unfortunately, it was shut down over 10 years ago. However, I know where he ended up. Chief Ilodibe adopted him. The boy was renamed Uzoma, and he now manages the very company built on the land where he was found, the DPO said. The DPO offered to accompany them to the company. Without hesitation, they all entered his car and drove off, hearts pounding with hope and fear. At Chief Ilodibe's company headquarters, on reaching the company, they were warmly received by the receptionist. When the DPO requested to see Chief Ilodibe, They were ushered into a grand office. Seated behind a polished desk was the elderly, elegant businessman, Chief Ilodibe, now in his 70s, but still sharp and dignified. The DPO explained everything in detail, from the visit of the siblings to the picture they brought, to the possibility that Uzoma might actually be the same boy he found in the forest 28 years ago. Chief Ilodibe listened patiently, then asked to see the photo. When he laid his eyes on it, he leaned back in shock and said, "This face, these eyes, I remember them. Yes, this is him. This is Uzoma when I found him, so lost and helpless. But look at him now. He's grown into a man I'm proud of." Then he looked up at the siblings and said, "But this is a serious matter. Uzoma has no idea he was adopted. We've never told him. He grew up believing we were his biological parents." Everyone fell silent. Then Chief Ilodibe stood up and said, "If there is any possibility that this is truly his biological family," he said, "then we must confirm it the right way. I will not inform Uzoma yet, not until we have proof. I suggest we carry out a DNA test. Only then can we proceed." The siblings agreed, and the next day, arrangements were made. Blood samples were collected from Uzoma without raising suspicion, and samples from the siblings were taken as well. The DNA results. When the paternal DNA test results came out, it shocked everyone. No match, the doctor announced. The supposed elder brother Effiong does not share paternity with Uzoma, the doctor said. A thick silence filled the room. Confused and emotional, Chief Ilodibe turned to the doctor. "Please, is there any other way to confirm this?" The doctor nodded and said, "Yes, let's conduct a maternal DNA test. If they share the same mother, we will know." And so it was done. 3 days later, the result came in. Match confirmed, the doctor announced. Uzoma shares the same mother with these three individuals. The room spun. Effiong grabbed a chair and sat down. Nsekak burst into tears. Nse covered her face in shame and disbelief. "Same mother?" Effiong asked quietly. But different father?" Chief Ilodibe, deeply shaken, stared at the report. "That means your mother had a child with another man? And perhaps no one, not even your father, knew about it." He turned to the siblings. "Your mother, she never told anyone?" Nsekak wiped her eyes and shook her head slowly and said, "She only confessed to us on her deathbed, told us she believed he was alive, and begged us to find him. But she never told us he had a different father." Chief Ilodibe turned and looked out the window, deep in thought. This boy, this man Uzoma, has no idea his whole life is built on a secret. After everyone has left, the hospital corridor was quiet. The doctor, Chief Ilodibe's family doctor for over 20 years, stood in his office, staring deeply at the two DNA test reports in his hand. Something didn't add up, or rather, something matched too well. He looked again at the names: Uzoma Ilodibe, Chief Ifani Ilodibe. He couldn't ignore it any longer. Just weeks earlier, Chief Ilodibe had done a personal DNA screening for health profiling. Out of professional instinct, the doctor went to his cabinet, pulled out the chief's DNA record, and compared it directly with the new maternal test results that had just confirmed Uzoma as the son of the same woman as Effiong, Isekak, and Nse. But this time, something shocking surfaced. The doctor slowly sank into his chair, heart pounding. "No, this isn't just maternal," he muttered. "This is paternal too. Uzoma's DNA matches Chief's," he said. He sat still for a moment, stunned, then picked up his phone. He dialed Chief Ilodibe's number and asked him to come over. At the doctor's office, Chief Ilodibe arrived within the hour. As he entered, he saw the doctor's serious face. Doctor, what is it? Chief Ilodibe asked. The doctor took a breath. Chief, I need you to think carefully. Have you ever traveled to Akwa Ibom State, the state those children came from? He asked. Chief Ilodibe furrowed his brows, then shook his head slowly and said, No, I don't think so. Wait. His eyes widened as old memories began to surface. Wait a minute. Almost 30 years ago. Yes, I can remember. I had a business meeting in Uyo. I remember staying in a small hotel just outside the town. The doctor leaned in and said, And did anything happen? Chief Ilodibo looked away, ashamed, and said, After our meeting that evening, my partners insisted we go out and drink. I don't usually take alcohol, but that night I did. When I returned to the hotel, I found a cleaner in my room, a young woman. The room fell silent. He continued, We had something. It wasn't forced, oh. I was drunk, but not out of my mind. She didn't resist. It just it just happened. But the next morning, I left early for Lagos. I never saw her again, Chief Ilodibe said. He shook his head slowly, voice cracking, and he continued. I buried that night deep in my memory, but it looks like my secret sin has found me out. So, when Chief Ilodibe finished saying what he was saying, the doctor told him that Uzoma is his son, according to the DNA. Chief Ilodibe was shocked and surprised. Then, that evening, Chief returned home. With trembling hands, he called his wife and three daughters into the sitting room. He sat them down and told them everything from the night in Uyo to the DNA results. They were silent at first, shocked, but seeing the pain in his eyes, they eventually forgave him. You've been a good father and husband, his wife said gently. We are not proud of what happened, but we won't let this destroy us, she said. His daughters embraced him, crying. Then, 2 days later, Chief sat with Uzoma in his study and said, My son, he began, there is something I've kept from you all these years. You were adopted. Uzoma looked up sharply and said, Adopted? You mean you are not my real father? Chief nodded slowly and said, Yes and no. Let me explain. He told Uzoma how he found him as a little boy in the forest, crying and helpless, and how he took him to the police. He explained how the child was later taken to an orphanage and how he and his wife eventually adopted him. Uzoma listened, overwhelmed, and said, So all this while, I'm not who I thought I was? Chief placed a hand on his shoulder and said, You are my son. You are mine in every way, but there's more. I didn't know then, but DNA has revealed something else. Uzoma looked confused and said, What do you mean, Daddy? I'm not just your adoptive father. I am your biological father, Chief Ilodibe said. Uzoma froze. What? How? He asked. Chief took a deep breath and said, Years ago, in the state where your siblings are from, I had a brief encounter with a hotel cleaner. I never knew she got pregnant, but now everything points to the truth. She was your mother. Tears welled up Uzoma's eyes. Everything inside him shifted, and he said, So, I'm not just adopted, I was lost, and then unknowingly returned to you. Chief nodded and said, Yes, son, God brought you back. So the next day, Chief Ilodibe invited everyone, his wife, daughters, his elder brother Mazi Okafor, the doctor, Uzoma, and his half-siblings, Effiong, Nsekak, and Nse. Chief stood before them, composed yet emotional, and said, "This is not just about DNA. This is about truth, destiny, and healing. I made a mistake in my youth, and today I face the result, not with shame, but with acceptance. Uzoma is not only my adopted son, he is my flesh and blood." The doctor confirmed the results and explained everything medically. Uzoma walked slowly toward Effiong, Nsikak, and Nse. The air was thick with tension, but then he hugged them. "I'm your brother," he whispered, "and from now on, you are no longer alone." Tears flowed freely. Then, after the family reunion, Uzoma and Chief Ilodibe wasted no time. They brought Effiong and his family to the city. They built him a modern bungalow, gave him a fully stocked business, and made sure his children had access to good schools. For Nsikak and Nse, Uzoma empowered their husbands, helping them start their own businesses and ensuring the entire family moved from poverty to stability. The once scattered family was now united, brought together not by wealth or chance, but by truth, sacrifice, and grace. Thank you for watching. This is where our story ends. But before we conclude it, let's look into our moral lessons. The past may be hidden, but it is never erased. Our choices today may shape someone's tomorrow. Own your past so it doesn't own you. A moment of truth can restore years of pain. Chief Ilodibe's honesty turned shame into salvation for an entire family. Never underestimate where a child comes from. Every abandoned child has a name, a story, a destiny. Like Uzoma, they may become the very answer to their family's prayers. Family is not only blood, it's sacrifice, love, and restoration. Uzoma didn't seek revenge. He chose reconciliation. That is true strength. Forgiveness heals what bitterness destroys. From the doctor to the daughters, forgiveness opened the door to peace. In conclusion, life often hides its deepest secrets in the quiet corners of our past, places we rather forget, choices we hoped would disappear, but the truth always finds its way home. Chief Ilodibe never imagined that a moment of weakness 3 decades ago would come back home, not to destroy him, but to reconnect him with a son he never knew he had. Uzoma, once abandoned and broken, became the bridge that reunited a scattered family, from rejection to recognition, from pain to purpose. His journey reminds us that no story is ever truly over until grace finishes the chapter. In the end, what started as a secret became a source of healing. What began in shame ended in restoration. This is not just Uzoma's story. It is a message to all of us. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to do with it. Thank you once again. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video to support powerful African storytelling. Share it with someone who needs hope. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss another life-changing story. And in the comments below, tell us, what lesson did you take away from Uzoma's journey? Your voice matters a lot to us. Your story matters. And here we tell the stories that heal, inspire, and restore. See you in the next one. God bless you all. Bye bye. Love you. Mwah.